Podcast. 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 Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast. I was singing the theme song live. I just forgot to turn the camera on here with Zoom. Today, I'm trying to get back to where we started with this podcast. We're over, 2 years into this thing, and I was always trying to bring out behind the scenes, or BTS, the kids like to call it, industry people that are working on things that you might not know are happening. And I finally got back to that as Supercross winds down. We get a little bit more time. Today, we're going to talk to Christy LaCurelle as part of the U.S. Motorcycle Coaching Association. I don't know what you think of the coaching thing. You've probably heard of it now because they've rolled out quite a few ads during Supercross, and it's been around for a couple of years now itself. But let me tell you what the thing is really all about. It's not about coaching. It's not about learning from a coach or being a coach. It is truly just about getting people to try motorcycles, to like them, and to keep riding them. This was just identified as one of the best ways to do it. So this is a true industry initiative to get more people to ride and more people to stay riding. It just so happened to coincide with this explosive growth that the industry had in 2020, really due to the pandemic. And now we've got all these new people on motorcycles, and how do we make sure that they're safe and they have a good time? Well, you really just take some of the models that have worked for so many other sports. So we'll talk to Christy in a bit about the coaching thing and how that's actually important for the industry, well beyond what you might think coaching actually means. It's part of a much bigger process. But first, a shout out to our sponsors. First, Yoshimura. They've been with us the entire time here with the Exhaust Podcast. They've got the RS12 exhaust system available for a variety of bikes. Excuse me. I've already had my shots. That's not COVID. YouTube comments, I'm sure we'll talk about the fact that I got the vaccine already. The RS12 exhaust system looks different, sounds different. It performs really well. It's a really cool system where they've come up with a pretty elaborate shape to get the maximum muffler size while still getting brake clearance for the rear end of your motorcycle. Of course, it was developed first with Suzuki because Yoshimura was always integral to Suzuki's factory efforts, be it Team Suzuki or the JGR team or RCH back in the day. But now it's available for a variety of other bikes too. All Hondas are running Yoshimura exhaust pipes, all the factory bikes, both here and in Europe. So they've got RS12 systems for those machines, also for Kawasaki's and Yamahas, and even Huskies and KTM. So Yoshimura's got something for you. Go to yoshimura-rd.com and also check them out on social media, and also check out their YouTube page. Got a lot of really original and fresh content over there at Yoshimura's YouTube. And by the way, this show, we're now simulcasting. I'm doing this on video. So it's a podcast you can download, but check it out on YouTube as well, this very show. Also, shout out to Just Live CBD. Now, look, I was skeptical. I've got it actually right here. I would never spend money on anything, so they sent me some free. You know how that works. And this is a pain relief cream, and I have bad kneecaps. I told the story a couple of weeks ago when I had to jump off of the Monster Energy stage a couple of years ago because I wanted to avoid having more super bummed out and negative on everything in life small talk with Ryan Villapoto, and my left knee has never been the same after that big jump. And now I'm older. I got to say, it actually does feel better. I can't guarantee it's because of the Just Live, but it is working for me. My knees do feel better with the pain relief cream. Go to justlive.com and get 30% off your order if you type in RacerX, all lowercase. I ran into Travis Pastrana over the weekend when I was at American Flat Track in Atlanta. He was racing with Ryan Sipes. Pastrana is one of the founders of the company. I don't think there's just enough Just Live out there to solve his knee problems completely. But when it comes to pain relief, I'm sure he's looking for that, and he swears by the Just Live product. I mean, look, he's like the most beat up human being walking right now. So if he likes it, probably work for you. And of course, the podcast brought to you by MX Tech Suspension. Go to mx-tech.com. Check out their National Shock and their Lucky Fork. It's about as close as you're going to get to Works suspension. These are proprietary pieces. That shock looks awesome, and it just kind of shows you how much technology went into it, the National Shock. And the same thing with the Lucky Fork, dual springs, dual cartridges, Huck valves, but still maintaining lightweight along with great performance. So go to mx-tech.com. Now let's get into it with Christy LaCurelle of the U.S. Motorcycle Coaching Association. We have, hey, the last name. Where do we go with, Christy, now? What do we go with?
I haven't legally changed it, so it's Christy LaCurelle here on Zoom, but you can say Sutherland also. It would make him very happy if you did.
All right, Christy Sullivan. I've never said it that way.
Sutherland.
We've never said it that way. Yeah, we know you as Christy LaCurelle, and we used to joke a long time. You're at KTM for a long time, and I used to joke when you were running the KTM Junior Supercross Challenge, are you really like full-time in this industry, or you're just a weekend helper? You've gone way beyond. You now have all these things that are, heck, they're practically volunteer work, or they are volunteer work, just to try to help the sport. And that's why I want to talk about the coaching, because I think people think that it's this high-end thing. We all know that, like, Alden Baker's a coach and a trainer, and Gareth Swanepoel's coach and trainer. That exists as part of your organization. But more importantly, this is about new riders and getting people comfortable riding motorcycles. And that's the point I want to hit, because I think that's the most important part that we all need.
Yeah. So I'm here today representing the U.S. Motorcycle Coaching Association. It's the first motorcycle coaching association in the United States. It's much needed. We started about 4 years ago, and you're right. There's a lot of high-end coaches. There's a lot of facility coaches that are represented through us, but it's also everything in between. We want to make sure that no matter what skill level you are, what type of rider you are, that you could get coaching and you know where to find it. So our forward-facing website, motorcyclecoaching.org, you can just go there, type in your zip code, find a coach nearest you. So you can choose a high-end coach if you wish, or you can choose, anybody else that's there that's ready to give lessons as well. We just want to make sure that we can, help these riders get more skilled and stay in the sport for a lifetime.
Yeah, and I'll give people the brief on this. I literally went to the website, I typed in my zip code, and there it is. There are trainers in my region of the country, coaches in my region of the country. I'm in North Carolina, so it's people at Club MX and things like that. But I want people on a broad scale to see why that's beneficial to have that. And I'll give my own example. So my kid is riding dirt bikes, and I just take him to the track, and I just watch him, and I try to tell him stuff. But I'm not. I've been around, right? So I know some things.
Which I love watching your stories with you, teaching them to ride and stuff, by the way.
I'm a disaster. Meanwhile, there are 2 other days a week where I take my son 2 days a week and my daughter 2 days a week to play t-ball or softball. And guess what? I don't go anywhere near it, because those softball coaches know way more about how to swing a baseball bat than I do. Can I swing a bat? Yes. Can I teach them how to swing? Yes. Am I going to be as good? No. And I'll give you another benefit. When I took my daughter to softball practice yesterday, I scheduled this meeting with you while I was just sitting there in the bleachers while she was improving at a sport, which has a great appeal that I didn't have to spend another hour and a half of my day. I got more work done because someone else was making them better while I was making myself better. Mm-hmm. So that is the point. To bring that same thing that every other sport already has to two.
Exactly. So it's no secret that finding a motorcycle coach has been hard to do in our industry. And in fact, so going back like probably 6 years ago, John Eric, who's one of our founders, he's also my business partner. He and I were both working at KTM, and he was trying to get coaching for his youngest kid. And he just kept asking around everybody at the office, where do I find a coach? Where do I find a coach? And then eventually he tries to get Nathan Ramsey, who was working for us in the AMS team. And, that's who he's trying to pull in because that's who he knows. But it's like, so he was president of KTM at the time, and he was struggling to figure out how to find a motorcycle coach. And this is where the frustration kicked in, that like, this isn't okay as an industry, that it's that hard. And then even if you do get a recommendation, how do you know that that coach is legitimate? Like, how do you know they don't have a criminal background? How do you know they have any level of safety training, or that they even know what they're talking about? And so the whole goal of our organization is to legitimize motorcycle coaches, to make sure that people know that they've met these basic standards and they have passed a background check and they have passed all these safety precaution measures, so that when you log on, you have the confidence in that coach that you could leave your rider with the coach, and you don't have to be at the track if you don't want to, because you could trust in them, just like any other sport. So we benchmarked with the snowboard and the ski industry. We actually went to some of their summits, and in the early years, like, that's who we were getting a lot of our advice from, to see how they did it, because that's what you do. You go to a ski resort and you leave your kid, like you said, and you let them go get lessons, and you go down the hill and you come back and you check on them, and you have the confidence that you're allowed to do that. And we want to get that way in motorcycling.
Yeah. And what happens is it makes the sport so much more appealing that way. And I remember what you and John Eric and some of the other founders, I think Emig, were saying at that time was, okay, some of the same obstacles to motorcycling, like skiing has as well. It's expensive. It takes a lot of equipment. It takes a lot of experience. There's only a handful of places where you can even
Go.
Right. But they were not having a problem growing as a sport and industry, despite all the obstacles we blame on ourselves. They were somehow circumnavigating that because you just go with your kids and somebody says, I'll take care of it. It's that easy. Yep.
Yeah. Because once you're there, it is really easy. And there's signs everywhere that tell you how to do it and what to do and how much it costs, and you can rent equipment and so on. And we actually do have quite a bit of coaches that are starting to figure out this rental game of how to have equipment and things like that people can use to get on bikes. We have a lot of dealerships that have their own fleet of demo bikes as well, and utilize our coaches to do learn to ride days to get new riders at least their first time throwing a leg over a bike. And then, you know, hopefully because we have such passionate coaches, they're teaching that love of the sport. And so that first time on a bike is a memorable one. And then they want to come back, they want to purchase, and then they want to continue the coaching sessions for the future.
Now, here's the funny thing. So this is 2016, I think, that this USMCA started, correct?
Yeah, end of 2016.
Right. So 2016, we are all in a collective, man, people just aren't buying motorcycles anymore. We haven't rebounded from the economic downturn. A lot of people want to blame four strokes, FYI. So we got all these issues, right? This is great that some people like yourself are like, we have to fix this problem. We have to get new people on motorcycles. I don't think anyone was thinking, but 4 years from now, we will have a global pandemic that will end up resulting in a spike in new riders.
The biggest spike we've seen. Yeah.
Yes. So now all of a sudden, this is I would assume, become almost a retention thing. Now we've gotten new people on, and now we're all afraid we're going to lose them. So how does this help us keep those new riders that we just got in the last 14 months?
Yeah, well, I'll backtrack a quick second, because in 2016, when we had a hard time getting riders for the sport, half the reason this came about is, as a group at KTM, we thought, oh, I know one way that we could get new riders. We could relaunch high school motocross. You know, it was around in our sport in the 70s. Actually, Davey Coombs had so much information on it because he had all these articles and everything that he had written and collected. We talked to Brock Glover and Tom Moen and Mark Hyde and some people that we knew personally that had raced in the 70s at these high school motocross events, which, by the way, it was amazing. They used to do them on the high school football fields and put little ramps for jumps, but like everybody could go and watch it like a football game. Like,
oh my God,
it was amazing. You couldn't do that now. You know, the bikes would tear up the fields and stuff, but it was really cool hearing some of these stories. And so we thought, we're going to do this. And we actually found a high school in California that had a motocross club. And we found, through Rob Itis, we found some schools in Ohio that we were going to try to use and start high school motocross. Nathan Ramsey and myself worked on the project, and we came up with a concept of how it could work with, freshman, JV, varsity level competition, and how practices could look like. And we worked with like live timing companies, and we just thought, oh, we're so genius. We're going to, have this whole concept out, and we're going to be able to launch, and it's going to be rad. And then we get to the school board to vote on making it a sport here in California. And they said, great, all this looks good, but how do you certify your coaches? And we're like, we don't do that in motorcycling.
What does that mean? Yeah.
And they're like, well, there's not going to be a sport here unless you have a way to certify coaches.
Wow. This
was at the same time that John Eric was struggling with finding a coach for his kid and everything else. So just all these things came together at the same time where we're like, wow, high school motocross is a cool concept, but my goodness, do we have a lot of work to do with actually being able to figure out how to certify coaches? Like, this is something our industry needs. And so, hence launched the USMCA, and that's where we started. And forever, the first few years was still like, just tell people about coaching and get them to try motorcycling, and then we'll keep them in the sport. Well, then all of a sudden COVID did get this spike, like you said. Now they're all here in our sport, and now we need to use the power of our industry and our customers to remind them it's motorcyclecoaching.org. If you just bought a bike, make sure you go there, get some coaching, learn how to ride safely so that you enjoy it and you stay in the sport a lifetime, because we don't want these people that just joined us to go away. We want them to learn to love it like we all do and stay in it.
Yeah, I think the concept in this sport, it takes a little while to realize what's the point until you think about, in soccer, it's so automatic that you have a soccer coach that you just completely take it for granted. You would never even consider playing the sport of soccer without a coach. You don't
play it from the first time you show up. You have a coach. Yeah,
absolutely. So if it's worked for every other sport, it's got to help here. And those are sports. Look, soccer is literally just kicking a ball. Like, a kid could figure that out to a degree on their own. This is a much more complex thing. And the story I always tell is, when I first got a motorcycle, My parents weren't letting me ride one, maybe because we didn't have coaches, right? So they had no one to trust.
Yeah.
So I'm an adult and I'm like, I got to put this motorcycle in the back of a truck. And I use this example all the time. And they're like, you idiot. You have to take the stand and put it next to the ramp to use it as steps.
Yes.
And I'm like, I didn't know that.
And how much easier was your life once you had even that level of coaching on how to load the bike?
Yes. And that's one thing. There are 500,000 other things that if an experienced person was around to say, oh no, do this, do this, do this, do this. It makes everything much more enjoyable. I think part of the problem is industry lifers like ourselves, it's easy to forget how difficult some of those first steps are and how helpful it would be to have someone, heck, they probably help the people figure out where they can even ride the things, I would think.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, of course. Like that's half the battle is our coaches. When you reach out to a coach, they'll say, okay, well, here's the options I have for you, based on your location. And then you at least get an idea of where to ride if you don't know. And then when you show up, they have a pre-ride checklist that they go over with you. That's like making sure you have the right gear and your helmet strap before you go out. And just these general safety precautions that they know to do because they're professionals and they want to help you. We've also been given, a huge blessing that companies like Stasic came around and Strider and all this stuff because, when we were kids, we didn't have that. So it was like your first bike pretty much had a clutch even too. Yeah. So it was a little harder to learn. And now it's like, look at all these steps where like at 2 years old, people can actually figure out how to go on 2 wheels now without training wheels, which just makes that transition into motorcycling so much easier down the road, but also allows us to coach at such an earlier age than we ever have been able to.
Now, there is that higher end element involved. So you do have buy-in from I see Alden Baker's face on the site. You do have the very famous coaches that we know of. So they're involved. Explain how that part works with USMCA.
Yeah. So the higher end coaches, of course, aren't open to the public because they do have contracts with specific race teams, but they want to be part of this organization in the industry. And they want people to see their face there as well, because they understand the importance of having a coaching network. And even for some coaches to aspire to get to the level of teaching pro riders for the ones that want to, so that's the main reason of having those people involved. Plus, in the example of Alden Baker, the KTM group has been a supporter from the very beginning. And they've required anybody who coaches for their organization to become USMCA certified. And so that was our first contact point with him, was that requirement early on to stay involved. And then every year he just keeps saying, like, it's so amazing to see the growth. And he's really proud to be part of it and represent it. And now we've gotten even more OEM partners on board. We have Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki who have joined this year. So we're really proud to have that. We also have a dealer partner, Mountain Motorsports, and we're in talks with some more about joining, because we're just trying to connect to anybody that has a connection to anybody who's riding, to just make sure the word's getting spread. Like, this will only grow through the industry. So we need people to know this is where you can go to find a coach.
Well, that's like the ultimate dream, right? And I know you had some slides that you showed me. I don't know if you can share them right now, but like to show, if you go to a dealership and these signs are sitting there that say, you're buying a motorcycle for the first time right now, do this, go to this website. It'll make the whole process easier.
Yeah. So even like, this is an example at Mountain Motorsports, something that we were able to produce. Wells Fargo is a partner of ours too. And that's how we actually made the connection with them. But this is like a giant banner that they have up in their dealerships that just talks about motorcyclecoaching.com, shows the different disciplines of riding that you could have. We have little static clings that have a QR code on them that go on the front number plate of bikes or the front fender. So if you're looking at a new bike, it's like, you can't miss that this is an opportunity for you to try. Everybody knows how to use QR codes now since COVID and restaurant menus and such. So it's like, you just click on it, it takes you right there and you can figure it out. So they're doing a really good job helping to promote it in their local areas. And we're just hoping we can get more people to do the same.
Now, what you're not doing is the coaches, okay, there are some background things they have to do, but what USMCA is not teaching them techniques to teach the rider. Correct? You're not like, keep your elbows up, all coaches teach this. It's not like that, right?
Correct. We let the coach train in the way they want to train. So we just verify that they have basic knowledge about motorcycle coaching. And then more importantly, we do the background check. We do the safety training through CPR, through heat stroke management, concussion management, heart attack, this type of thing, to make sure they can recognize the signs.
So any certified coach has gone through that level of training. So that's
yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And And that's what we're focused on. So we're taking people that are already motorcycle coaches that already have that experience. We're just saying, yes, we know that you do have that experience. We can sign off on it. Prior to COVID, we used to do workshops to validate the coach. And now we do more reference checks, calling people that they've coached in the past and asking questions about how the coaching session went with them and how that person overall was as a coach. And then we have a self-policing policy, which has worked really well, where people can report, any bad practice with a coach to us. And sadly, we've had to use it in the past, which is unfortunate when you have to let a coach go, but it's also fortunate that it's working and that you've eliminated somebody, from the system that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, you're not just saying that these are all safe or good coaches. You actually have used tools to make sure that's actually
correct. Yeah, definitely. And in some states, depending on the track, you're not supposed to be on the track anymore, unless in particular cases, like we have a few tracks in Southern California, if you don't have a USMCA certification, then they won't let you on the course to help coach your rider, just because people have gotten hit standing on the sidelines and things like this, and they don't want injuries. But if you're USMCA certified, one, they know you have insurance policy through us, and two, they know that you have enough general skill level. Hopefully you're not going to do something that's going to cause injury to yourself or others.
Okay, so we understand the appeal for the new rider, even the current rider, to get coaching and where they can get that info. But then at the same time, I guess getting coaches is another goal. So just talk about the steps you're trying to make there and how important that is to try to get more coaches in.
Yeah, I was joking with you earlier, telling you that like we, Instagram stalk people all the time right now, because we do have white spots on the map. There's not too many states where we don't have any coaches yet, but there's a couple. And so we're looking for coaches in those areas. And then there's, the normal hot spots that we know exist in motorcycling, like California and Georgia, Florida, and up near New Jersey, area. And we need more people there. We have so many training requests coming in now because of all the partnerships we have within the industry and them helping to spread the word, that we need more coaches in order to accommodate these requests now. And so we're constantly trying to find people in these states by finding, results of riders that we can see in a state, and then seeing if that rider uses a coach, and then trying to go to that coach's page and see who they have, and reaching out and saying, do you know about us? We think you'd be a great fit. Let's figure out how to get you involved. And so that outreach has been successful, but we would love feedback, from anybody that has a coach that they think could be part of this.
Is there, what does it take? Okay, if someone's listening to this, or if they get Instagram stalked by you, what do they need to do? Like, how much of an effort is it for a coach that already exists to become part of this?
We like to tell people to consider probably like 10 to 12 hours for the whole program. So most people do it over the course of a week, and they just dedicate a couple hours a night, because the different levels of certification that you have with the background check, the abuse prevention training, the CPR, and then the SSI certificate, they all take about an hour or so each to go through. And those are standard systems that we partner with to have our team go through. It's all within our system, but separate certifications through those people. And then there's the actual motorcycle training course that they go through at the end. But you can get through. We actually had one coach finished it in about a day and a half, and that was Kurt Nickel, of all people. And because he really needed the certification, because he had parents and riders asking him, don't you have a certification, that were coming from, other countries and stuff to coach with him in his school. And he was like, what? Like, why am I getting asked this right now? But it is a more common question, because now that stick and ball sports haven't been as popular during COVID because they couldn't do them, people are coming to this sport and they're expecting some sort of certificate. And so now our coaches are having to deliver. So people are coming through going, I need to be certified. I have all these people asking. So he got it, and he went quick.
Is there a cost involved to?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. It's $200 to become certified.
Yep.
And that covers you for 2 years. We do run the background check every year just to make sure that we're doing that. So even though you get it for 2 years, at a year mark, it runs another check on your background just to make sure that everybody's staying relevant. And then if they're a renewing coach, there's even a break on that. It's $150 to renew once you've already been certified. So we really try to minimize the cost to our coaches because we don't want this to be something that's difficult for them. We want them to come in and just have a network where people can find them and be a really great resource for them. And then obviously for riders, everything's completely free. You just go to the website, type in your zip code, and then you find the coach. And then, there's a price to your coaching session, but that's negotiated between the coach and the rider.
Yeah, that's whatever the coach was already charging. It's not like an additional
Correct.
charge because they're certified. Although, look, and I talked to Jeb, I think the second podcast I ever did, this is probably 3 years ago, was with John Eric Burleson, Jeb, as we call him. And when this thing first started, Jeb was no longer a KTM, but it was still kind of fresh that he had been there. And I think everyone's first thing was, well, how are they making money on this? There has to be some way to make money. Is that stigma finally gone after like 4 years of clearly not trying to gouge people? You can't find the avenue that this is making you guys money. So is that stigma finally gone?
Well, first of all, it's a nonprofit. So if we're not making money, it's actually an official nonprofit organization. And, we're volunteering our time here. So we do have 2 full-time employees that are there, and we would love more. If the funding comes in, we could definitely use more. But right now we have 2 people. Lindsay Sheltema is our executive director. She's doing an amazing job. And then Mark is our systems manager, also excellent. So we couldn't be happier with the people that we do have, but it's a nonprofit and we don't make money where, the board members are volunteering their time because we want this to just be successful because we've had great careers in this industry. We love motorcycling and we want others to see the same joy that we have with motorcycling and stay in the sport for a lifetime. And this is one way that we really think could help. Like I know myself, like I'm not a crazy skilled rider, but every single time I have coaching, it's like, it just makes me want to ride so much more because I learn a different skill and everything. And I'm like, oh, I'm so much more comfortable. Like I took one of our coaches, Jimmy Lewis, I took a school with him. This is probably, 4 years ago or so, but I remember him telling me like, we need to get you to skid, and I was like, skid, why would I purposely just start skidding? Because I'm not that skilled. And he's like, because once you understand what happens when you skid, then you'll be able to control the bike, if it does actually start to do that and know what to do. And I remember just being so scared going, I can't believe I'm going to actually just keep purposely going and doing these skids in this parking lot. But like, once I did it once, it was like, oh my gosh, that was really easy. And then I started controlling it. And then when I went a little crazy, like I knew how to handle it. I mean, the object was obvious, like it worked, but it was something I would have never done on my own to teach the skill, and I thought it was crazy when I heard it, but it helped me so much, so it's just incredible what it can do for your confidence as a rider.
By the way, this skid lesson in a parking lot, was that street or dirt? Because I think the street element we haven't even mentioned here, that doesn't
we haven't mentioned it. This was actually dirt. It was it was in the dirt parking lot of Glen Helen. We started there with lessons before we actually went to the track, but that was on a dirt bike. But we have coaches that are certified in dirt bike and sport bike. We focused on closed course training, although we do have quite a few coaches now coming in doing adventure / dual sport training as well. So there's some of that. So it's just kind of both disciplines, and they can get certified in both too if they do happen to do both sides of it. But we like the closed course just for the safety aspect of teaching riders for the first time, making sure they're in a safe environment as they're developing their skill.
Okay. Do you have any like numbers or buzz or heat that you can tell that this is starting to catch on and now that you're 4 years into it or 5? Yep.
Yeah. Well, we got real excited when we hit 200 coaches. So we're happy to say we have just over 200 coaches in the US, which has finally given us a large enough number to really start pushing the network, which is why we chose this year to kind of make this forward facing push. Feld and MX Sports have been awesome on the dirt side of things by giving us, obviously, interviews like this. And then Feld has been showing our commercial on Race Day Live. They've been letting us do Race Day Live broadcast. Cowie helped us get that Science of Supercross piece that if you were watching, it was featuring one of our USMCA coaches, Bubba Pauley. And that really opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that the USMCA exists and, where to find a coach. And it's really great to see the industry come together and make some initiatives to help push our message. Moto America on the Superbike side is going to do the same as their series kicks off here soon. Just helping us reach their fan base and making sure that people know this is somewhere to go. So because of that, in the first 4 months of this year, we've already surpassed our entire training request number that we got for all of last year. Now, I know that was during coronavirus and stuff, so a lot of places were closed for a while, but in 4 months, we've already surpassed the number of training requests. We've had just under 250 training requests so far this year come through the system.
And when you say training requests, what is that?
That means a rider actually clicking on a coach and asking for a coaching session.
Through the website?
Through the website, yep.
And you say you're thinking of an app, or you got an app coming? Is that the goal, to make it even more user-friendly?
Yeah, we're getting quotes right now for an app. So it's really user-friendly on the rider side already, because you just type in your zip code and you click there. But we want to make an app that works basically like every app that people are used to today, where the conversation can stay within the app, so that the coach can write back to you and say, like, here's my times, what type of training are you interested in? And then they can actually schedule it in the app, and it can send reminders to the rider that here's your session, and riders and information to the coach, doing the same thing. And then as soon as you finish your session, if you want to rebook again, it will send a reminder like rebook with them now, so that it just all gets done and it's really easy for the coach and the rider to stay connected and continue the training.
Okay, so you've gotten 200 plus coaches to buy in. You're getting more requests from people looking for coaching. So that part is working. You mentioned you got some dealerships now and some more OEM partners. Are you starting to feel buy-in now? Because again, I feel like 3 years ago, everybody was like, what's this all really about? Are you sensing a collective, if you're Honda or you're Kawasaki or you're KTM, hey, you're actually helping us. Thank you. How can we help you? Is that starting to happen?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see that shift. Now, there's still a lot of information that all of our supporters want to have, as far as seeing how many sessions are booked and how many more coaches we can keep bringing in. So there is, some results we need to prove to everybody, but it's finally trending that way. And so far, we feel pretty confident that our partners will stay with us. And that's what we need, because this initiative is going to continue to be funded by the industry. It has to survive. We're never going to try to get so much money from coaches in order for it to exist. Like, the idea isn't to take from the coaches. The idea is that this helps grow the sport of motorcycling, and therefore the industry can help fund it. And if we can prove that it's just one thing that works, they'd be happy to do so. And so our mission this year is just prove that this concept works and get all of our partners to sign on again for the future.
Well, I think everybody wants to know that the sport they love is healthy, or trying to be. I think there's a lot more rider retention and rider training things that go on that people don't even realize. I mean, I hate to take a shot at them, but you hear all the time, like, dude, I'm in the AMA. What is that doing? Well, I don't think they realize that it does more than you probably realize. And then there's all sorts of other initiatives. I mean, there's all these groups that people probably haven't even heard of. Motorcycle Safety Foundation. There's a lot more. So are some of these groups starting to identify and work with each other? Because there's actually quite a few of them.
They are. So even from the early days, we've actually had always verbal support from organizations like the MSF, and then even all the OEMs, even though they weren't a financial supporter at the time, nobody was telling us, stop what you're doing, or we don't believe you that this would work. It was just like, why don't you let it grow for a little bit, and then we'll, just keep us in the loop. And then when the timing's right, they could come on board. So with the MSF, a lot of their courses are trained on licensing for street riders and so on. And we definitely don't want anything to do with the licensing aspect of those companies. Total Control is another one. Like, we want them to have their standalone programs that they're really great at and continue that. We just want to be the next level, that once they're done with that, basic safety course, then they come and they can continue to grow and become more comfortable with one of our coaches. So that's helped us find a really sweet spot in between those organizations to help. But some companies like Honda, I mean, they have tons of rider education initiatives that they do that I don't think people know about at all, and we're just another one that they support now, but they've been doing these things forever. And when you do go through them, they're amazing, but it is more difficult to find. It's like they're not used to pushing that type of initiative. And so that's where we think like we can help them. And even some of their MSF certified coaches that Honda supports, we're working to get them USMCA certified so they can also live within our network, and people can find some of those basic safety courses through our site, because you truly should be able to find any type of coaching on our website. That's the idea. If it's motorcycle coaching, and somebody is coaching some sort of discipline in it, then you should be able to find it on the motorcyclecoaching.org website.
Okay, so it's happened, it's off the ground, you're getting more participants and buy-in essentially from all sides. But as a storyteller, I always have to go here. I interviewed Marvin yesterday, and I was like, hey, when you were getting 9th in races this year, how down in the dumps did you get? Were you thinking of giving up on it? Now that it's looking good, what you're doing, were there times though where you're like, man, what are we doing here? Getting it off the ground voluntarily had to be hard.
Oh, it's got to be hard. I mean, it was hard. Even last year, with everything happening, nobody wanted to give us money because even though bike sales were good, it's like, but they're going to drop off and then things are going to go bad. Everybody was always being really pessimistic about what could potentially happen. And so we got to a point where we were like, we don't know if we'll be able to continue because we might not have funding. And then John Hines, the president of KTM, he actually really helped us circle to the OEMs and say, like, come on, you guys, like, there's never been a better time to bring this initiative to the forefront of the industry and help support it. And so they came on and everybody agreed, to give it a shot and see. But like, I'm sure Marvin could tell you in his interview, even when you're number one, it's like, it's not easy because now you have to stay number one. You said now you got the support, but now you got to keep the support and you got to keep everybody happy. And you got to make sure that they continue to agree this is where they want to put their money. And so that's where we're at now. We're so happy to have them, but we're working our tails off to make sure that they know like this is something that should continue and can really help the sport.
Well, what I'm getting at here is I know one of the real initiatives here is the lifelong passion, right? So things are going to be good, things are going to be bad, but you're trying to have the stick-to-itness of it's a lifelong thing for the coaches, for the folks organizing it, for the riders themselves. Lifelong.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And, one of our core values for our coaches is to have this lifelong passion for motorcycling. And the reason we actually list that as a core value is because if you don't have that, then you can't teach it. It's something that once you get, it doesn't just go away. But it's so obvious when you have it and it's so easy to pass on to others. And so that's why we make it a core value. And we want anybody that's coming and being coached to have that same experience, to just fall in love with it, really enjoy motorcycling. Because at the end of the day, what's life without motorcycling? Like, I have no idea what I would do if motorcycling wasn't in my life. It's been such a big part of my life. And it's like showing that joy that look at what motorcycling can bring to you.
I say it all the time, especially now that my kid rides and I got to pack up 2 bikes and 2 sets of gear and all this stuff. And you're doing it, at 5 a.m. and you're like, why am I doing this? And then at the end of the day, you're like, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
It was so awesome. It was so worth that struggle in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You had so much fun and it brought so much joy, like that's what we want to pass on to people. I mean, obviously you can have a life without motorcycling, but what kind of fun is that?
Yeah. That's the thing. So when you showed me the slide earlier, the goal of the coaching organization is not just coaching, it's strengthen and healthen, make the industry healthier. That's the overall goal. You just figured out that coaching is a way to do that, or maybe the best way to do that.
Yeah. And it's not the only way. Yep. But it's a way that we know can work. And it's a way that we know can make them safer on a bike and more skilled on a bike, which just obviously helps with the lifelong goal because you become safer, you hopefully have less injuries and everything else. And you also can help teach others to be better on a bike as well.
Yeah, because I know this doesn't appeal to everyone. You could be right in the middle of your riding years where you're really good and you're like, I don't need a coach right now. I can go to the track, I can ride on my own. But the hope is that someday someone's going to come to them and be like, hey man, my son or my daughter wants to get into it. What do I do? And then maybe they just reference you folks, even if they don't need it, just being aware that it exists.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep. And that's our goal here is we just want people to know this is one more resource that you can use when you're trying to convince your buddies to get into the sport or your kids or anything. It's like, look, just go to us. We can help you. We can help you with the next piece.
The craziest part really about it all is that you came up with the concept of linking this together. But the one thing you did not have to do was invent the idea of coaches. There were already tons that happened to already exist. That's the amazing part.
Yeah. And, now we just got to keep finding them and add more, but they did already exist. I mean, you were at it, but our very first summit when we launched this in Dallas, Texas, we did it with Supercross. We had over 100 people in that room. Just to say, here's our concept of coaching. And, you know, it was the Ryan Hughes, the Ricky Carmichaels, you know, all these big names of people that actually came and listened to that first summit because it was something they believed in. And we talked a lot about safety in that and everything as well. And, you know, even concussions and CTE and this type of thing that's, you know, concerning the sport, and just finding ways to continue to partner with different initiatives where our coaches can help be powerful on that side of the business as well. I know I told you in a previous conversation that we're working with companies like the Brett Downey Safety Foundation and also Trey Canard's Racing Standard to help improve the safety at tracks as well. We're not a safety organization, but if our coaches have great relationships with tracks where they can help give some basic guidelines and feedback to these tracks about how they could potentially split practices to make it safer for mini bikes versus big bikes versus professional riders based on the amount of people that you have at the track, and training flaggers and making sure they're in the right places at the right time, and having ambulances at practice sessions and things like this that we all know that can improve the riding experience and the safety of the riders, then that's part of our initiative as well.
Oh man, the Dallas thing. And that's why I can't accentuate enough how far this has come. So first it was like, who's trying to make money on this? And then it was, how are they going to get all these coaches in the same room? These guys are rivals a lot of times, right? Like these are like, they each have a bunch of riders aiming for the same title at Loretta's. Like that was the definition of coach that we knew at that time. I didn't know there were all these local grassroots coaches. And I was like, oh, there's going to be a rumble. They're going to argue over foot placement on the peg or when to shift. Now we found out it has nothing to do really with any of that. That's not even what you guys are. They can teach whatever they want.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not whatever they want. They have to be a
you have to be
motorcycle coach, but we don't.
Yes.
We don't try to find out what each person's secret sauce is. You know, like if they have something that they think really works for them in their coaching technique, then they do that. And that really eliminates a lot of the arguments, because then if somebody doesn't believe in one thing and somebody else does, it's okay, because you can go to a coach that you want to choose based on technique that you know that they offer. But at the end of the day, you know that at least they're a legitimate coach. And even if their technique varies, it's okay, because different things work for different people anyways.
Yeah. You kept peace in the room. I was actually, my favorite part, this is what really sealed the deal. Rhino was there. Rhino is very outspoken, as everyone knows, very opinionated. And the whole time I'm like, man, what's Rhino going to say? And then he stands up and I'm like, oh no, here it comes. And then Rhino, instead of railing everybody and saying, you should teach this, you should teach that, my technique is the best, he said, I don't care. I just want people to be safe on motorcycles. That's all I'm concerned with. So however you want to do that, that's fine by me. And I'm like, whoa, that really changed the dynamic. I feel that even he bought into, it's not my way or the highway. It's whatever is better for everybody, I'm cool with. I thought that was neat.
Yeah, I agree. And just for the record, Ryan is about 70% through the USMCA certification process. So he's not quite there yet, because he tells me that he can only do the training when there's a rainy day. And in Southern California, that doesn't happen very often, but it happened yesterday. So we made more movement yesterday, but he, you know,
just yesterday.
He's a popular coach in this area, of course. So he's somebody we've been trying to get through the certification portal. And so I told you, you know, it doesn't take that long, you know, earlier, but that also depends on how much you like technology and get through some of the systems. And in his case, he doesn't like technology that much, but we know he'll come through and he'll be on our website soon.
Yeah. He's okay with the philosophy and the concept, maybe just not getting on an app or website.
Which in this environment has been the hardest part with new coaches, is just getting people to be able to find the time to do the certification program, because everybody is really busy.
Nice problem to have. This
new outdoor lifestyle everybody's living has created not a lot of downtime. So that's our biggest struggle, is just getting people to find the time, and us telling them like, it's not hard, just come on.
Go team. Well, I believed in it from the start, even though the obstacles it seemed like you were facing are totally different than the ones you have now. But all you got to do, everybody, is have your kid do another sport one time, whether it's the ski instructor or t-ball, softball, like I'm dealing with right now. And then just think about applying that. And you'd be like, oh man, that makes it. I could check Facebook while they're learning to be better baseball players. It's literally.
You can take pictures of them because you're not coaching them.
Yeah. Because when I take my kid to the motocross track, I feel so guilty, because I'm like, man, I hope that I'm giving, we got, 2 hours. I want to make it the best 2 hours possible. That's a lot of pressure. When you have a certified coach, and, well, they're probably getting the best 2 hours they can get.
Yeah. I mean, and even if you are super qualified to teach your own kid, a lot of times we all know our kids don't listen to us as well as they live to or listen to anybody else either. I mean, my husband's a professional racer and our daughter does not like to listen to him when we're at the track, but I, bring one of my best friends who's a coach to the track and she'll listen to her the entire time and all of a sudden improve her skills because it was anybody else but us that gave the instructions. So even for just that point, it helps a ton.
Yep. That's why I'm going to do a 50 camp at Club MX. That's local to me. And a couple of the trainers and coaches there are certified. So
they are. Yes.
Yep. That's good to see. Okay. I think we covered what we need to for this audience. I'm just trying to get people to understand why it exists. And I think people feel good when they know the industry they love is trying to do things the right way. So that's the overall message that I like to get out here.
I agree. We're growing up as an industry. We have a coaching association, so I just want to reiterate how much our organization appreciates your support. Like you said, you've believed in it since the beginning. So we're really grateful for any time like this that you can give us. Our sponsors have been amazing. The industry has just had open arms to this. And so we just hope that everybody listening can also help spread the word. Motorcyclecoaching.org. Find a coach.
All right. Thanks, Christy LaCurelle Sutherland.
You're welcome.